Hello, welcome to Tech News Curator. I am Julian Ho. 2023 will be a year of uncertainty for the global economy, and a number of external factors will continue to impact the technology industry, including the ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine, and the recently resumed Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The Middle East is once again filled with the smell of gunpowder. Tech Scrapbook provides you with the key events of the week and highlights the industry news that you should not miss. First of all, the tense situation in the Middle East has aroused global concern. On the other hand, the trade war between the United States and China, as well as the geopolitical issues derived from it, are still spreading in the technology industry. Because of the impact of the epidemic, the TSMC Sports Day, which had not been held for 3 years, were resumed on October 14 this year, with TSMC's founder, Morris Chang, attending again. In his speech, Chang said that he was not a VIP as introduced by the host, but one of our own, and that TSMC Sports Day was the most enjoyable day of the whole year for him. In fact, at the 2019 TSMC Sports Day, Chang made the wise preview that TSMC has become a battleground for geopolitical strategists. After seeing the global industry development in the 4 years from 2019 to 2023, the wisdom of Grandpa Chang has been highly confirmed. What we have to pay attention to is that Taiwan's protector of the nation, TSMC, will definitely not face easier competition than in the past. Chang emphasized again that globalization in the semiconductor field is gone, free trade is gone, the most important thing is still national security. Every country is very worried, but this also makes TSMC become a company that everyone needs. Competition between TSMC and its peers continues, but some competitors are trying to beat TSMC by taking advantage of the geopolitical situation. That is, the absence of globalization and free trade. Morris Chang believes that if Japan and Singapore to build semiconductor manufacturing supply chain is relatively more favorable, Taiwan's competitiveness may not be favorable after 20 to 30 years. Chang analyzed that many countries want to build semiconductor manufacturing supply chain. Japan is more ideal, especially in Kyushu. In water, electricity and land have an advantage, and the work culture is also quite good. Singapore is also suitable, but the drawback is that the place is too small. Water and electricity do not have an advantage. Taiwan, with the evolution of the country's economic development and other circumstances, he believes that 20 to 30 years later, Taiwan's semiconductor manufacturing environment will not be as favorable as it is now. As for the US, Chang believes that the US semiconductor manufacturing environment from 1955 to 1972 was actually as favorable as Taiwan's today, but it has changed since then. The US has lost a large part of its semiconductor manufacturing advantage, but it has also comprehensively upgraded to a chip design industry that does not require high capital expenditures and has accumulated high-tech industrial strength, making a lot of money, such as Nvidia, Apple, and now Microsoft and Google are all investing in chip design. The future semiconductor towns may even be India and Vietnam. TSMC's strengths are being eroded due to national security concerns and the trend of anti-globalization. For example, TSMC's biggest competitor, Intel, Chang believes that some US customers can order chips from the US that are no different from those made in Taiwan without an increase in cost. This is Intel's local advantage. However, none of Intel's new plants have been built yet, so this is not a valid scenario. Intel's local advantage is not about having fab experience in the US, because TSMC's current fabs are much more advanced than Intel's. Intel represents made in the USA, so if Intel has good service, technology, yields, and OEM prices, it could be a threat to TSMC. But Chang is not worried because he doesn't think all of these things are going to happen. We then turn our attention to West Asia, where the full-scale conflict between Israel and the Palestinian militant organization Hamas is still going on, and we hope that peace will come as soon as possible. We can also see that in modern warfare, the importance of information war has been increasing. Low Earth orbit satellite technology has already attracted attention during the Ukraine-Russia war. When terrestrial communication equipment is destroyed, switching to low Earth orbit satellite communication can enhance digital resilience. In fact, Taiwan is also a member of the global LEO supply chain. The low Earth orbit satellite communication system can be divided into the space end and the ground end. The ground side includes ground receiving stations, control stations, and user terminals. Key technologies include baseband modules, satellite communication protocols, phased antenna arrays, RF chips, and satellite network terminal management systems at the space end, ground end, and user end. In the field of upstream components, Taiwanese companies have entered the PCB and material supply chain. including Elite Material, Compec, and Shenmao. While there are relatively more satellite antenna companies, such as Jonsa and Azure Shine for dish antennas, and WNC, Universal Microwave Technology, and Pyrus for general antennas, Inelux for flat panel antennas. For power modules, there are Akbel, Chicony Power, Hitron, and Asia Vital Components, Alpha Networks for heatsink, power supplies from Akbel, Sysgration, Chicony Power, and routers from Hitron and WNC. In the power amplifier chip segment, the foundries include GAA's companies such as Win and Transcom, etc. In the satellite terminal supply chain, there are also some parts that Taiwan companies are not working on, such as RF chips and baseband chips, as well as RF modules, antenna arrays, and beam control, in which there are fewer vendors involved. On the whole, although Taiwan's industry has been cultivating the satellite ground equipment industry for a long time, most of them focus on the supply chain related to satellite TV and satellite navigation, but are relatively lacking in baseband modules, phased antenna arrays, key RF chips, and machine testing technologies, and mostly rely on foreign satellite communication equipment suppliers. In addition to the military, the significance of low Earth orbit satellites lies in the enhancement of digital firmware and the use of emergency communications. In the part of emergency communications, even the general public, who have been distant from satellite communications in the past, may also be able to use it, as evidenced by the fact that cell phone brand owners have been introducing satellite communication functions in recent years. The importance of satellites in communications will continue to grow in the future, and the shortened life cycle of satellites as they move toward lower Earth orbits has also become a business opportunity for global satellite supply chain operators to aggressively seize. Let's zoom in a bit and see how the Israeli-Palestinian conflict affects the technology industry. In fact, semiconductor IDM leader Intel has factories in Israel, and NVIDIA, which can now be said to be the AI leader, CEO Jensen Huang had some trips to Taiwan this week, but he also confirmed that NVIDIA's subsidiaries in Israel did have employees caught up in the war who were kidnapped by Hamas and lost their lives. Of more than 3,000 employees of the subsidiary, Mellanox, 400 were also drafted into the war. Intel operates two fabs in the Israeli town of Gat, Fab 18 and Fab 28, and in June 2023 announced plans to add a third fab in Israel, Fab 38, which is scheduled to begin in 2024. However, the town of Gat is located near the site of the outbreak of the war, and in consideration of the safety of the local staff, the related production and construction plans may be delayed. Intel produces PCNB CPU processors and server processors in Israel, although Chang said that from Intel's point of view, the impact of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict on Intel should not be significant. We can see that NVIDIA, which is also a major customer of TSMC, has 7 research and development centers in Israel and employs more than 3,000 people, accounting for 12% of the total number of employees in the world. In order to strengthen its data center business, NVIDIA acquired Mellanox, an Israeli IC design company that focuses on solutions and services related to data center servers, for $7 billion in March 2019. Originally, NVIDIA planned to hold an AI summit in Israel on October 15-16, 2023, and Jensen Huang was scheduled to deliver a keynote speech. But due to the impact of the war, NVIDIA has cancelled the event, and Jensen Huang has recently been seen at the Ningxia night market in Taipei, and will also participate in activities such as the October 18th Honghai Technology Day. Although we are currently seeing the crisis of the semiconductor industry breakup with the Palestinian conflict, perhaps not so urgent, and for the Taiwan industry, not as much as a direct impact, but in the geopolitics of the global business community have become concerned about and have to actively face the situation, caution is still the best attitude of the Taiwan industry. Finally, we take a look at the world and Taiwan. Last week, something big happened in Taiwan's electric vehicle industry. Luxgen, a domestic brand, finally launched the N7 series of purely electric SUVs, with a price tag of less than $21 million for the 5-person Pure Edition, aiming to become the most affordable electric vehicle. So Chi-sen, chairman of Luxgen, also presented his views on the dynamics of the EV supply chain, the overall market, and Luxgen's future development direction. So Chi-sen said that Luxgen represents a local brand and must carry the heavy burden of the development of Taiwan's domestic electric vehicles. He also knows that Taiwanese consumers are still hesitant about electric vehicles for 2 major reasons. The first is that electric vehicles are very expensive, and the second is the completeness of the ecosystem and the charging network construction. We can see that, in fact, the price of the mainstream electric cars in Taiwan can be roughly divided into the high-end $4 million and the middle range $2 million to $2 million. Even some of the most basic models are also $6 million. In this case, The N7 pricing has become the key to accelerating the development of Taiwan's EV market. Zhou Qisen said that the global electric vehicle is booming, but such a glorious scene for the industry, one to be happy, one to be worried. The happy part is that more and more people are turning to EVs as an option, and the acceptance and penetration rates have increased dramatically. However, the worry part is that talents, technology, raw materials, supply chain, and scarce materials are all up for grabs, and the cost and selling price of EVs are actually 20–30% higher than that of fuel vehicles. Coupled with factors such as the Ukraine-Russia war and geopolitics, the cost of EVs remains high. The ultimate objective of the Yulon Group's cooperation with Honhai is that the price should be shocking. As to whether the price of less than $1 million is profitable, Zhou Qisen said that it is actually not profitable. The delivery schedule still depends on Foxtron, and according to the current schedule, it will enter mass production in November to December and is expected to be delivered in January 2024, that is, before the Chinese Lunar New Year. As for the production capacity, Zhou Qisen clearly pointed out that there is absolutely no problem and that Foxtron has a very close grasp of the supply chain, so there is no need to worry about meeting the demand for the N7. Although the Yulon system has reservations about the expected delivery volume, Zhou added that the production pace can be maintained at 1,000 units per month in the first half of 2024. This is not far from the production scale for the 4-month period from December 2023 to March 2024, provided by the relevant supply chain. Zhou Qisen analyzed Tesla prevails Taiwan's EV sales in 2022 annual sales volume in Taiwan, nearly 12,000 vehicles, including Model Y in Taiwan, the price of more than $2 million. On whether there is a chance to squeeze Tesla, Zhou Qisen said confidently, absolutely has the opportunity. N7's strengths are price, localization of services, ecosystems, and independent R&D team. Taiwan is very suitable for the development of electric vehicles. Luxgen not only hopes to help Taiwan achieve the popularization of EVs, but also to build up a complete EV mobility ecosystem. Zhou Qisen pointed out that it is Luxgen's goal to enter the international market. In 2024 and 2025, Luxgen will focus on the Taiwan market, hoping to increase the volume in the future and to improve the overall ecosystem to replicate these models in Southeast Asia or other countries. Thank you for your participation in this week's Tech News Curator. Tech News Curator will be aired exclusively on the DIGITIMES YouTube channel every Wednesday at 9:00 a.m. EST. You are welcome to like, subscribe, and turn on the little bell to be the first to receive notifications of our updates.